Hey, welcome back to my channel there, Budheads. John Budnik here. I got another music book review for you. This book is actually not specific to music, but it does fall, it is applicable to musicians, as the subject matter covers creativity. And that book is actually called Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear by one of my favorite authors, Elizabeth Gilbert. Now, I have to freely admit that I have no data to back this up, but I would wager a guess that I am probably one of a very small demographic of men that actually read Elizabeth Gilbert. She's one of my favorite authors. I say probably a small portion of men in her audience, just because her most famous hit of a book was Eat, Pray, Love, which is an excellent read. It actually helped me get through a breakup. But one thing I really love about her writing is that it's very conversational. The words seem to leap right off the page, and the book is almost talking right at you. In particular, this book, what's awesome about it is that she's got very short, quippish thoughts on creativity for you. But to the meat of the book and creative living, what that means, creative living beyond fear, is an interesting concept. So basically, from Elizabeth Gilbert, my takeaways from it were that, you know, artists, whatever your medium is, whether you're a musician like myself, a painter, a writer, a sculptor, whatever your medium might be, and even it doesn't have to be something palatable in the arts, as it is just curiosity. But creativity is kind of this frequency, this universal that we as the channel, the artist, pulls from and then puts out into the world through what we call our art. She does talk about an instance, I believe it was her dad, that, you know, he was a creative living guy, and one day he decided that he wanted to get bees. So he read all he could about bees, and then next thing you know, they have bees where she was growing up. Just one small instance of that creative curiosity. It's a fascinating read. It's a good read. It's a philosophical read, and very, again, easy and palatable. You can read it in big chunks. You can read it in small chunks, whatever you prefer. But it's a good and interesting concept because, you know, when we talk about creativity, there's components of inspiration. Where do we find it? What do we do with it when we have it? And Elizabeth Gilbert touches on all of that kind of stuff. So it's very, very good in that sense. My biggest takeaways from the book were, you know, as an artist, we have this. That's my cat. I don't know if you can hear my cat. She's got enough to say about creativity. But anyway, you know, we have this tendency as artists to almost take ourselves a little too seriously with our creativity. You know, she touches upon the aspects of, you know, the dark and disturbed artist. She's not a fan of that, and neither am I. Not to say that you can't write great stuff when you're sad and depressed, but it's not a necessity, and I think that's extremely important to understand. You know, the bottom line in that regard is that, you know, take your art and take your creativity seriously, but don't take it too seriously. Some of the finest works that you'll ever create are probably going to come out of jest and when you don't take yourself very seriously. So take that to heart. Very, very good book, and just really explores kind of what it means to be an artist, how to kind of tap into, I mean, not so much tap in, but how to manage your creativity in terms of excuse me, in terms of just going for it. You know, there's just that element of going for it. You know, don't expect to read this book and think that you're going to quit your job. You may, that might be a decision that you come to, but that's certainly not what she advocates for. And I think that's a very reasonable take on being an artist, being a maker, being creative, is that, again, another good takeaway is that it doesn't owe you a thing. It doesn't owe you riches every time you write a song that you think is great. That, you know, when you paint a picture, that you deserve money for that or some sort of monetary gain out of it. So once again, very excellent book. It's really for anybody and everybody. I read this book, 1, because I'm a big fan of Elizabeth Gilbert, 2, because it is applicable to musicians, but it's not just for musicians, it's for all artists alike. And again, like I mentioned, I think I'm in the small demographic of men that read Elizabeth Gilbert. But if you're a man out there watching, don't be afraid. She's actually written for GQ magazine and Esquire as well. She's a very well-renowned writer in her own right. Anyway, if you've read this book, leave a comment below. Tell me what you thought of it. Let's keep this discussion going. And if you have any other interesting works by Elizabeth Gilbert that you'd like to share, I believe she does have a podcast where she actually helps artists, you know, kind of navigate their creativity and maybe where they're hitting some blocks. I've listened to about 12 of those episodes. I think she just recently kickstarted them back up. But nonetheless, if you have any suggestions from Elizabeth Gilbert, please leave a comment below, hit that like button, and if you're not already a subscriber, please hit the subscribe button. I always appreciate the love and support, and again, let's keep the conversation going. Thanks a lot, guys.